Hi, everybody. This is Zen Honeycutt of Moms Across America. We're here with Ann Temple of Wisconsin, and Amber from Washington State. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
And tonight, we're going to be doing a Standing Rock review and update on what's going on at Standing Rock. First of all, we want to thank all of our supporters who donated over $10,000. Yay! Really amazing. And wait till you see the list of supplies that we were able to get them. It's really great. I'm so proud of everybody. So we're going to go over the list of supplies. The latest news is that there's been an executive order, and then I do have a little bit of photos and review that you can see what it's actually like on the ground at Standing Rock. And we'll start with the latest news, okay? Because this is really very disturbing. This is happening right now. I'm going to share the screen so that you can see it yourself with the latest news, okay? Because this is, here we go. Okay, can you see this executive order?
Yep, got it.
Okay, so what the governor of North Dakota has just released is an executive order saying that there are severe winter conditions and anticipated harsh winter conditions that will continue until next spring. No duh, it's winter in North Dakota. And that these winter conditions have the potential to endanger human life without proper shelter. Gee, I wonder how the Native Americans made it through the winter 100 years ago. Probably with teepees, right? So this is really ridiculous. And anyway, so with the large population that have chosen to stay in this area without proper dwellings for suitable winter habitation, the area is also not zoned for dwellings suited for winter conditions, and they don't have the proper permanent sanitation infrastructure to sustain a living environment consistent with proper health, which, by the way, is not true. They're getting, when I left, they were already getting in compost toilets, so there wouldn't be any impact on the local area at all. Whereas they have ordered an aforementioned area which they managed to be vacated due to public safety concerns related to the inability to effectively provide emergency medical fire response services and law enforcement services. This is also laughable because it's been the state of North Dakota that has not allowed that Route 1806 to be opened, which prevents emergency medical and fire response services to come in on that road. So this is totally ridiculous. They're the ones that have not been allowing proper, transport to go through to that road. So whereas it's responsibility of the state to assist citizens and visitors to North Dakota in addressing these issues, they have ordered a mandatory evacuation of all persons located in the area under the proprietary jurisdiction of the United States Army Corps of Engineers located in Morton County and defined as a prohibited area in Exhibit A of the United States Army Corps of Engineers memorandum, which is the memorandum which was given out on November 25th. And this evacuation shall remain in effect even if the Army of Corps of Engineers redefines or removes these prohibited areas, meaning even if the Army Corps of Engineers changes their mind about this, the government is still saying this area should be evacuated, and they are not to return, and they should take all possessions with them, and I direct state agencies, emergency service officials, and non-government organizations to reduce threats to public safety by not guaranteeing the provision of emergency and okay, this is apparently for their well-being that he is demanding that everybody evacuate, because apparently human beings that have lived in this area for many, many years for centuries don't know how to keep themselves warm.
Hey,
So
Jen.
this is the latest. This is the latest news, and this means that the police or the National Guard could, of course, start issuing tickets or arrests, or making sure that people evacuate tonight. That's what this means. And they're doing this, of course, because they know that the veterans are on their way. They were scheduled to come December 4th, and the Army Corps of Engineers issued that everybody had to evacuate December 5th, thinking that that would prevent the veterans from coming. And then the National Guard stated that they would start evacuating people on the 2nd in order to prevent a conflict with the veterans. And apparently, veterans are getting wind of that and trying to go there earlier. And so it appears that the governor of North Dakota wants to remove the chance of having veterans in conflict with the local police, as if that's going to prevent the veterans from going there. So very, very disturbing news. Anybody have anything else, Anne or Amber, that you want to add to this?
Yeah, this is Amber. I just saw a post from Jordan Cheriton, who's with the Young Turks. And I believe it's true that the governor does not have authority to issue any evacuations on Army Corps land because it's a federal piece of property and not state-owned or controlled.
Good point.
So he technically doesn't have the legality to do that.
Right.
We need executive order.
Yeah, and we should remind everybody that this land is, I believe, 1851 or 1858 Fort Laramie Treaty land, which is Sioux Nation territory, and that the Army Corps of Engineers was simply, taking care of it. So it literally is Sioux Nation territory that they are kicking people off of their own land. And this is nothing new. They've been doing this for years and years and years, giving the Native Americans their land, and then saying, oh, wait a second, well, we actually want that land. Like they give them Alabama, or they want Alabama, and so they gave them like Georgia and Louisiana or something like that. And then they decide, oh, Georgia and Louisiana are really nice. Actually, we want you to, why don't you go take Arkansas instead? So they keep moving them over and over and over and saying that we need that land. And so this is, once again, 500 years of colonization that's happening in right now. And it's not going to work. I'm having been there, the Native Americans are not going anywhere. They're not going to just pick up and move. This is not going to go well, I'm afraid. So so that's the latest, and we're all praying for them. I'm sure people around the world, apparently over 300 Native American nations are in solidarity with Standing Rock. Last news was that there are, and this has not been verified, but when we left, there were 10,000 people there. Latest I saw was there was probably 15,000 people there. So expecting 10 or 15,000 people just to pack up and go away is not very feasible, especially when a lot of them have been there for several months. So, okay, so what are we doing about it? Here is, I will screen share the supply list that I'm very proud that our, hang on a second, that our supporters have given. 1 second, screen share.
And I should also mention that 6,000 veterans on their way.
1,000 veterans on their way. Yes.
I heard 3,000 to 6,000.
Oh, 3,000 to 6,000?
Additional, yes.
Wow.
So if this is Indian, if this is their land, how can we kick them off? Well, not we, they. I'm not.
They don't care about that. They're breaking the treaty, is what they're doing. They don't care about it. They're saying so they're saying that because the Army Corps of Engineers is taking care of that land, that they have the right to do that. And the North Dakota governor is saying, because it's so cold, I have the right to kick you off this land.
Well, are there national parks near that area that are open all year? I mean, do they shut down that entire area? Because, yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, it doesn't.
They
You're
also
right.
normally don't shut down public roads that are taxpayers' dollars.
Right. With burnt out military trucks. Okay, so let me go through the supply list and then we can talk about this a little bit more. This is what is already there, or might be, some of this might be on the way. The majority of this is already there. So I'm very, very proud of all of our supporters. We did get more money while we were there, so some of the things are on their way. But what they have from Moms Across America supporters is a windmill, a wind turbine generator kit that will generate enough electricity to run an entire house or, you know, large home for the whole winter, you know, every day. Like, it will run everything in there. So we're hoping that will go to one of the community buildings or like legal, you know, one of the bigger structures. $1,000 of firewood, a couple $100 of propane, enough money. We didn't give them an actual TP, but we gave them the money for a TP. Look at this. Everything on the medic and wellness tent list we went out and got. My husband got some of this stuff from Target. I got some of this stuff from Amazon or other websites. So mason jars, muslin bags, Epsom salts, Dixie cups, lighters, a French press. This is for the herbs. They use a French press for the herbs. A herb drug interaction book, essential oils, all kinds of herbs that they need for treating colds. One of the supporters sent me a huge propane heater, which we put in the shower of our RV and brought up with us. And it was for the medic tent, but they already had a stove. So instead we gave it to the elders. And a couple boxes of hand warmers, which were that's what got me through being on the front lines on Sunday night, was the hand warmers. That I would not have been able to stay out there for, I think I was there for 6 or 7 hours without those hand warmers. Those were invaluable. A whole bunch of rag rugs for the school tent because they're just on the ground. So they needed some rugs, a bunch of Sub-Zero sleeping bags, a Sub-Zero waterproof tent. We didn't get more of those because they're really kind of beyond tents right now. But we did give them initially just 2 sheepskin rugs, and then you'll see later on we got them a whole bunch more. Some cots, a bunch of working gloves, camping mattresses, and then for general supplies, this was off of their Amazon wish list. So if you want to donate more to them, you can go to the Ocheti Shakowin camp wish list on Amazon and directly send them things there.
I sent them a bunch of medical supplies off of that list, a lot of like milk of magnesia, and I sent all medical supplies. I sent about $100 worth.
Awesome, thank you, Anne. Really appreciate it.
And I just sent 2 boxes. There was some coffee that was fresh roasted from a friend in Alaska that I'd collected, and elderberry syrup that I'd made. And
yay. That's awesome.
So,
they
yeah,
really
I got
need
some
elderberry syrup. They were like, we could use gallons and gallons of that because so many people there are sick.
Yeah.
So
they have a lot of elderberry syrup and a lot of Devil's Club, which is also really good for any kind of wounds or scrapes or just internal inflammation.
great.
That's
What was the name of that herb again?
Devil's Club.
Dental's
It's
Club?
Devil's Club.
Oh, Devil's Club. Okay.
Yeah, it's my girlfriend and her mother and her young son harvested a whole bunch in Alaska, and I already had some already in glycerin tincture as well. So I sent that and some balsam root. Yeah, they should be definitely need those types of things this time of year.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to get through the rest of the list. Just some snowshoes. If anybody wants to donate more snowshoes, those are really important, especially right now. It is snowing like crazy at Standing Rock right now. There's a drone video shot if you go to Moms Across America Facebook page that we have posted there as well. And those are kind of expensive. I think those are like $167 or something like that. A bunch of braces. They needed braces because people were getting injured, and the medics need a bunch of braces. Dr. Bronner's, yay, one of our sponsors, they had requested that, so we're very happy to give them a bunch of Dr. Bronner's soap and and some more propane, the small propane ones. Oh yes, we did give more propane. And a fire extinguisher. It's really sad when I bought these earplugs. I bought the earplugs because I thought people would want them because the planes had been flying around at night over the camp. And instead, people were passing them out because on the front lines, they were testing a LRAD, a long-range acoustic device, which emits a sound so loud that it makes people vomit. And they tested it when I was at the front lines, and because they said testing, just to intimidate us, they couldn't actually use it because you're supposed to be 300 feet away when you legally when you set that thing off. But because they said testing, that was apparently only testing, I was able to cover my ears. But every action after that, they handed out earplugs to people so that they could put those in their ears in case they did set off the LRAD again. So that was very, very sad that that's what those ended up getting used for. Winter gloves.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
There's a type of brand called Surefire hearing protection. It's actually for military. It's military grade, and that's really what you need for LRAD. So I can post a link to that online or something for knowing how to protect yourself from that, because it is regular hearing protection or noise canceling headphones will not protect you from it. Yeah. And thankfully they didn't actually turn it on yet.
Really disturbing what's happening. So the sheepskin rugs, these are important because there's just nothing warmer than animal skins and animal fur. Polyester is not going to cut it for them in the winters. These sheepskin rugs, these are important because. Oh wait, why is it echoing now?
That was me. Sorry, I put the YouTube on. Sorry.
Oh, okay, all right. So anyway, so we bought a whole bunch of sheepskins, the small ones for the school, just the single pelts, and then we got some double pelts for some people, and then some triple ones that are brown. They look like bear skins. They're so cool. And we designated some of those to go to, for instance, people, the women, the tribal leaders, the women tribal leaders or the women elders. I really wanted them to have these skins. So we designated some people that we personally met that to get those. And the guy that runs the supply list promised me face-to-face that they would get those. So I'm really happy about that. And then for the tactical team, they needed, or the logistics teams, I should say, some headlamps and some radios and batteries and things like that. So we spent $9,349, and I haven't added up all the gas receipts, but my guess is it's about $1,000, and we still have a bit of a balance. And what I was hoping to do with that is go to Goodwill and mail them a bunch of furs. Go to the thrift shop and buy a bunch of fur coats and then ship them those. But if not, we'll just send the rest of the money to them. And they'll use it for whatever they need to use it for. Okay, so now I'm going to try to show the pictures here. It went in a slideshow. Let's see if it'll, yeah, okay, great. I'll just do it this way. I had a video with music and all that and look really nice, but they're showing the pictures backwards. So I'm just going to go through, this will just take a few minutes to show, so you can get a feel of what it was like for the trip and also on the ground. So this is the book that I read. I highly recommend it. This is Every Day is a Good Day. It's Reflections of Contemporary Indigenous Women. It just gives you a feeling for how Indigenous women, or these Indigenous women, think and feel about modern day life in America or on reservations and their traditions. Just the way it's just a beautiful book. So I highly recommend this. And that was my reading. Here we are picking up the banners at the Iconography Studios. I believe they're in the Fullerton or Fountain Valley area, but they donated these banners. So that was really awesome. Here I am on the road looking at these horribly enormous treats at a gas station. It's just, this is America. This is what we're doing to our people. And my son just monkeying around in the RV. My other son got a picture of the beautiful fall leaves and the waterfalls. And we met up in Rapid City with Eco Wound Tour, who was at Standing Rock for 2 months. And they gave us the lowdown. They have a gorgeous RV. It's incredible. They tour the country. They've been doing this for 5 years, traveling around the country, teaching people about GMOs and a sustainable lifestyle, recycling, factory farming, all of that. So it was fantastic to meet up with them and get a little sleep. We drove straight for 24 hours until we got to Rapid City. And I want to give a shout out to Lisa, who drove through the night for several hours, and also helped my husband fix the radiator when that broke. She was really fantastic. Lisa came with us with her son Seth, so there were 7 of us in our RV. It was a little tight, I have to say, but it was good. Anyway, then we got to the hotel. We went to the hotel which is 15 minutes south of the reservation first, because we wanted to arrive at the camp in the daytime so we could get a better feel for it, so we could see the whole camp, and so that we could also pick out a spot that was appropriate to be at. So we took a little bit of a rest at the hotel and got to meet Shailene Woodley. That was great. And she was with a bunch of water protectors, took a picture with them. Then we arrived at camp at about 8 o'clock in the morning. It was great. This is called Crazy Horse Row, and this is the flags of all of the different tribes that have come to Standing Rock, many of which are still there. Some of the tribes have like 100 people there. That they have camps. So not the first day, because the first day we jumped right into a heart action, and I don't have those photos from Lisa yet, but there was a action of all women, non-Native women, and then Native American women and children, but I kept my children beside me. And so we jumped right into an action on the first day, and we went to orientation and the legal tent and all that, and we jumped into an action. So on the second day, I was able to deliver the supplies to the medic tent. And this is 1 bucket of yarrow. So people have sent so much of just this one herb that they have a huge bucket of it. So this is why we need to just pay attention to what the medics need, so that they don't get, hundreds of pounds of something. So please do look at the Amazon wish list, or we just put out a video on Facebook of what the medics need. So here's one of the medics. We also brought 2 cases of Restore. Restore, thank you very much for donating that. And this is really helpful, because if your gut bacteria is out of balance from eating GMO food and glyphosate, you destroy your body's ability to make serotonin and melatonin, which can lead to depression. And there are, as I was explaining what Restore does, there was a Native youth near me. He said, "Can I get a couple bottles of that? Because I've got a whole tent full of depressed Native youth, Lakota youth." And we said, absolutely. So we gave him a whole bunch of it, because it's bad enough what they're dealing with, and then they're dealing with the winter time, which can, depression can set in. So Restore will help balance out the gut, so that you can so that the body can create serotonin and melatonin naturally, and help balance out mood. So that was really great. And then we were delivering the sleeping bags to some of the elders and the cots. And as we were walking around camp, we found this great, oh, darn it, we forgot to put our city on there. Oh, shoot. Anyway, there's so many people had put their cities on there from all around the world. It was really fantastic. There was Switzerland on there. There was New Haven, Connecticut. There was Santa Cruz, just California, all kinds of places. Here's the guidebook that we gave to the medics. And here's my son. You can't see here, but he was holding a jar of tea that he got from the medics. And that really helped he had a cold. He arrived with a cold. He didn't get the cold there, but he arrived with the cold. And here's the camp. You've seen a lot of pictures of this, I'm sure. Thousands of people. This is a tent where they asked people to sign it. It was very cool. Really beautiful. And this is the Sunday night, the action where they just said, everybody go to the bridge. We need you. It was not an action that we had talked about in the morning. There was no meeting saying ahead of time that this action was going to happen. It was actually not sanctioned by the elders. It was one of the Native Americans that had said that they had talked about it for weeks, and I guess happened to get the tow truck that day. And they went that night to pull the military vehicles away from the bridge that were blocking this public road, 2 of them that were nose to nose deliberately in the road, which had been burnt out, not by our, the water protector side, but we believe by the DAPA workers or the police. And so he was moving that to clear the road, which the Morton County Police said that they would do 3 weeks earlier and had not done. So he was literally providing a public service, because with the blockade there, emergency vehicles could not get through. So once the police saw him doing it, they started shooting tear gas, and people came up to pray, to support him. And once the tow truck moved away, the water protectors stayed, and they were chanting and praying, and they were just standing there praying and chanting. They were not being violent. And then all of a sudden the tear gas started. And this is what it looked like. This is a picture from Lisa. They were shooting this tear gas grenades into the grass, and they would set on fire. And they were doing it all around the bridge on both sides. And so the Native American men would run and go and put out the fire with their feet or with their hands or with their, with their coats. And they were running all over the place trying to put out these fires. It was nothing short of a war scene. It was so disturbing. And they were setting these off. Of course, they have gas masks on. But anybody that inhaled any of that tear gas was incapacitated. They were, hacking and coughing and everything. This was around the tent, around the school, and around the campsite. This is Rosebud on the other side. This is the reservation land. So everybody from this side, which is, you can't really, the big picture that I showed you before, the big, huge area is expected to go over to the Rosebud, to the reservation side. This is the entrance to Standing Rock, which somebody has shot up, right? They've shot at the sign. So the next day, to try to normalize things a little bit more, I mean, we were really, frankly, going through trauma the next day. But we wanted to get the kids out and, not focus on it so much. So we went to the Rosebud side, and the kids were stripping poles so they could be used to make yurts. And they had a really great time doing this. They would strip the bark off. Ben would strip off the branches, and then Bodie would strip off the bark. And Bronson helped by making his own little thing. And they really got their hands dirty. This was great. This was a moment. So this bumper sticker was given to me at a moment when I was up on the hill, Facebook hill. I'll show you a picture of it later. And I was reporting on what happened, and I saw how many people donated and people that were supportive, and I was tearing up and I was feeling very emotional. And I thought, gee, I really need a hug. And as I was walking up the hill, this huge big guy sitting on a quad, Native American guy, just reached out and handed me this sticker. I said, I don't know you, but I love you. And I just started like crying. And I said, can I hug you? And he said, yes. And we hugged each other. And that's the kind of people that are there. There's some very beautiful people there, and very, very loving. And, I'll never see him again, but he'll always be a part of my life. And it's just amazing place. You can see the airplane right over the top of the teepee there. That's a small crop duster type airplane that I never saw spraying chemicals. So the question's been put to us, were they actually spraying chemicals? There have been several people who independently have come forward that said, yes, the 2 days before we got there, they were spraying chemicals at night. But it has not been confirmed. People have taken samples, and those are in the process of being tested. So we will know if, in fact, they were spraying chemicals. While I was there, I did not see that happening. I do know that whenever these planes were around, it was very, very difficult to get any kind of internet service or to post anything or even take video. And what was said by the technical people is that there were stingers in these airplanes, which means they would grab the cell phone numbers, people that were using data on their phone, and reroute them to get service from a device in their plane. And then they would shut everything down. And I saw evidence of this over and over again, because I would be up on the hill and my battery would be at, say, 55%. And all of a sudden it would say power off, 0 battery, and it would shut down. And then I would turn it back on and it would say 56% again. I still had battery. they weren't depleting the battery. They were just redirecting the signal and then shutting it down. So, yes, and Amber, you sent me how to get the stinger, how to block a stinger type of thing. So hopefully people who are there can get that information and block stingers. But I was not able to do it while I was there. I got sick and I just didn't have the time and energy to do it. So anyway, there's a lot of work that can be done at the camp. They're going to need people like crazy for wood. I was told by one of the supply guys that they can go through a flatbed of wood in a week to warm 8,000 people, and a flatbed of wood costs $6,000. So they need a lot of money and a lot of supplies and a lot of help chopping wood. My kids had a blast chopping wood. There was a man who got a deer donated to him by a woman who found it on the side of the road, a roadkill, and he was stripping the hide and going to use every single bit of the deer. And he told me how they gave the hooves to the medics and, different things like that, the antlers to the elders. And this guy was like my son's hero because he knew how to do all of these different primitive skills thing. And my son is actually taking a independent study on primitive skills. So this was fascinating for him. There's the camp again. This is the main Oceti Shakowin camp that's right along the riverbed. Now, the problem is that oftentimes in the winter, this area also can flood. So they are going to have to move anyway at some point. And, or most of the people will, maybe not all of them. So logistically, they just have a huge amount of challenges before them. These are just some scenes around the camp. You can see the Moms Across America RV in the center there next to the dome. That dome is where we had meetings every morning, 8 o'clock meetings for actions and 9 o'clock meetings for the community. And every day while I was there were probably 100, maybe 200 people around Thanksgiving that were new, and they would have to go from the dome to a different meeting tent, and they would have to divide up, and they would go to the orientation. So there were hundreds of people arriving every day. And that's TYT. Got to talk to Jared for a little bit. And this is, I believe his name is Joel or Joe Bolenball, who made a movie. It's if you go to HELPA, HELPPA.org, it's a movie about oil spills. And Enbridge, I believe it's called, was the place where it was the company that polluted his river and his town in Kalamazoo. And his uncle died from it, and 14 people on his street died or got sick, I believe, from it. I highly recommend you go to either dappelies.org. It'll redirect you to HELPA, HELPPA.org, and check out. It's about a 30-minute short. It's like a trailer of a full-length movie that he wants to make. And it is absolutely shocking to see the amount of harm that comes from an oil spill, tar sands oil spill. This was the day after Thanksgiving. There were 3 actions that happened this is Thanksgiving. And there were 3 actions that happened on Thanksgiving, one at the bridge, one at Turtle Rock, which is their burial grounds, ancestral burial grounds, and one in the city. And you can see here's a man putting in, on the left-hand side, putting in earplugs, and another woman putting on a bandana. And they said once we got to, scenes from camp, once we got to the location for the action, that putting on goggles was an act of aggression. So for us to protect ourselves, that was an act of aggression. They considered it. So here's Turtle Rock. You can see sort of like the head of the turtle on the left, and then they considered the back. The top of that area is the ancestral burial grounds. And LaDonna, the grandmother who started all this, her son is buried up there. And there were several families buried up there. And the Morton County Police is just driving around on top of their burial grounds right there. That's all their surveillance. And this is Facebook Hill, or Media Hill, where all the media collects, the people gathered in order to get a signal. And so it was busy all the time like that. There was lots of media there. There were a lot of people doing Facebook Lives and posts and trying to email. But that's where you had to go if you wanted to get a consistent signal to make a phone call. And so it was very difficult for my husband to get any work done because it was freezing cold, and standing up there for any longer than like 20 minutes was, really pretty challenging. So that's why, we really couldn't stay much longer, in addition to my kids going to school and all of that. Here's everybody gathering to go to Turtle Rock. This was the action from across the way. I was over here at the bridge. So this is the bridge where the Sunday night event happened. But at the time, there were 2 trucks right there where you see all those cement barricades. There were 2 trucks face to face that were burnt out. The next day, they moved the second truck. The first truck was moved by the people on our side. The second truck they moved, and then they brought in a huge crane, a crane that was probably like 100 feet high, and dropped in those cement barricade things right on top of all of the coats and the tarp and all of the stuff that the people had used that were sprayed soaking wet. So they put in additional, barricades, and they put in additional wire. They really just shored it up the next day. You can see the burnt out car that was, they claimed that the water protectors burned. And the other truck, see on the far right, the middle screen in the corner, that's the truck that was used to be as a barricade that one of our tow truck people pulled out. So that's the tow truck moving away. And these are people up on top of the hill. This is where Kevin Gilbert was in order to get a Facebook Live reception. I'm amazed that he was able to Facebook Live for that long, and that his reception wasn't taken away. It was amazing. There's the people again going to Turtle Rock, and here again is the bridge. They wouldn't let us get too close to it, but I had to zoom in on it. That's a public road. So that's that tan truck right there. That's the truck that was spraying water. There's like a gun looking thing that comes out of the top of it. And they're saying that's not considered a water cannon, because water cannons are meant to knock people over. And they were not trying to knock people over. They were trying to douse everyone with water so that they would get hypothermia. And so they were shooting water out of the top of that vehicle for hours. It started around 5:30 Sunday night, and it went until about 5 a.m. So about 12 hours, they were on and off spraying water all over the people on the front of that bridge, hundreds of people. And this is disturbing, because what is a reality for the Native Americans is that there's a meth problem. I mean, it's not just Native Americans; it's all around the country. But there's a meth issue, and so the Mothers Against Meth, you can see written on the truck here. There's a lot of mothers out there that are standing for their young men and their family members to not be addicted. And the reason why there's such high addiction on the reservations is because there's not enough jobs, is what the mother that I spoke to. She's just said there's not enough jobs. So drugs come in and literally steal the futures of their children. Here's a Native American man who was drumming and chanting on Thanksgiving in front of the bridge. And there was a huge circle that was formed in front of the bridge of people from all over the world. It was really beautiful. And I couldn't photograph the actual ceremony because they don't allow it. But this picture I wanted to take because you can see the man on the right is probably military, but he's a white man, Caucasian man. And then the man on the left is a Native American, one of the leaders. And they were standing side by side. And that's what's happening here at Standing Rock, is that people from all different nations from around the world are coming together and are standing to protect the water, to protect Indigenous rights, to have the government honor their treaties, and to to establish, peace around this. And to protect water, protect human beings. It's ridiculous. This young woman sang in the center of the circle for the ceremony, and she was probably one of the most powerful people I've ever seen in my entire life, and beautiful as well, and just incredibly, incredibly powerful. She moved everyone to tears and just inspired all of us. If women around the world if they were tapped into the power that she has, if they knew their own power, that we wouldn't have problems everything would be sorted out. She was incredible. And here's more scenes of the huge circle that was formed in front of the bridge, on the road and on the hillside. And this was over at Turtle Rock, happening simultaneously. The smoke you see is from fires that they started to keep themselves warm. And you can see the military on the top. And they had a megaphone, and they were saying over and over again, we want a peaceful day. We don't want any violence today. You know, obviously it was Thanksgiving. They didn't want to have violence on their hands. And so they said, you cannot cross the river. But they did. They crossed the river. I'll show you pictures of that in a moment. So this is us going back. We had to walk all the way through the camp and go around the other side to Turtle Rock. We passed by some things. So they said, do not cross the river. And they did. And then they said, okay, fine, we'll just stay down there. Don't come up the hill, right? So they didn't shoot them once they crossed the river. They just said, stay down there. So then they sort of set a limit, like, okay, you can go up that high, but don't come any further, right? So all these people had crossed the river, and then they prayed over there. I wanted to show a picture of this because this is an emotional medic. What's happening at Standing Rock is not just physical abuse, but it's emotional as well. It's very, very traumatic for the Native Americans to be experiencing this when they've got hundreds of years of trauma happening to their people. And on Thanksgiving, a lot of people don't know, but on Thanksgiving, it was a celebration that was had after an entire village was wiped out. That was the tradition of the Europeans, was to wipe out an entire village and then have a feast. And one of the Thanksgivings, there was a tribe on the East Coast, begins with an H, where they actually invited the Native Americans to eat. And then afterwards, they wiped out their entire village. They basically trapped them. And so, this is trauma going on for hundreds of years for the Native Americans. So they have to have psychological, emotional medics there, that people to help them with their trauma. Here's some Native American man you can see with the face paint that was chanted. Oh no, I don't know if he was Native American, but I guess I'm guessing he was. He's very Caucasian looking. And here's the bridge that they built to have people go across to pray on their sacred burial ground. Very beautiful Native American women. I went to a woman's tent on one of the evenings and had a meeting with Lakota woman. That's one of the tribes. There's Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota in the area. And one of the Lakota women led the women's meeting and just gave us a little bit of a lowdown on what it's like to sort of be on their land and how they would like us to behave, like leaving the Lakota men alone, not, trying to have relationships with them because that's considered genocide, all kinds of different things, just how to help out, how to not see them as like we're not in a museum, don't go up to an elder and say, hey, can you teach me how to build a fire or how to, weave or whatever, we weren't there for our entertainment purposes. So I have to say that did sort of deter me a little bit from trying to get interviews with the women. I did not get as many interviews as I would like to, because I just didn't want to like sort of horn in on their life. I mean, like the Native American woman that was leading that women's meeting, she cut the meeting short because she had to go to her brother-in-law's funeral. They have a life, right? They're busy and they were winterizing for camp. So they had a lot to do. And I didn't feel like it was appropriate to be trying to interview them and, horn in on their life very much. I did get one interview with a woman and I have to edit it because the sound was not fabulous in the area that I was in. And the woman that I interviewed, her name was Florence. Her son happened to be one of the original 7 of the people who camped out on Sacred Stone. That was the original camp, Sacred Stone. And there were 4 youth and 3 elders, and he was one of the youth. And it was just fascinating to talk to her and to find out about how they originally intended it for it to be all peaceful. They just stood silently and held signs, saying water is life. That's what they intended for Standing Rock to be, was silent prayer. And it has turned very, very different, just totally differently. Here they are trying to get around the side of the island. instead of going up on top, and the police came over and formed a line, and they could have arrested them, but they didn't. And eventually the people, went back and prayed. So this was a tense moment. It could have gone very wrong here. They could have shot them and they could have arrested them, but they did not. They also could have let them through. There's no reason why they couldn't have prayed on their ancestral burial ground on Thanksgiving. The police, the Morton County Police, have no jurisdiction over that piece of land. There's no reason why they couldn't have gone there. So it was completely ridiculous that they were blocking them in the first place. But they were doing it because if they wanted the higher ground, first of all, right? There's definitely, that is literally the higher ground. But they also didn't want them to get closer to the pipeline, because over that hill, about a mile or so away, is where the pipeline drilling pad is. And so they didn't want them to get any closer to that. So here we are with the banner that Iconography gave us. It was freezing cold. So we were there as long as we could be, but definitely not for the whole day. And I was also pretty sick by then. Everybody that was on the bridge got sick, from what I hear. And it started with a burning in the lungs. So I believe it was, connected to the chemicals that were sprayed. And this is on the way home. We found snow, and the kids had a snow fight, and the scenery is beautiful. I just want to say that if you haven't gone cross country, I highly recommend it. We have an incredibly beautiful country, and this is Utah. And I hope that you see how gorgeous our country is. The landscape is incredible, and there's such a variety of landscape. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and we can open it up to any other discussion. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, can I address rapes? Yes. Okay. So in the women's tent, we were told that, yes, there are, 8,000 people at the time, and there's going to be people who have emotional issues. And there's definitely young men, Native American young men, that have experienced trauma, even rape, from their childhood, because there was such violence, or or not necessarily even young men, that men that have experienced trauma, and they're more likely to, reenact that. And so she said that there were 4 rapes. Another woman said that there were not that many. So I don't know exactly how many, but there were rapes, and there was also domestic violence. There was a young man or a man who left his wife and child there. So the community has had to help take care of them. And she reminded us to not put up with any of that, and to remember our power as women, and to not accept abuse, and to look out for each other, and to befriend each other. And she said, have women's meetings. If you got 4 women, get together, have a women's meeting. Make sure that you have buddies. Make sure that you have a whistle or a walkie-talkie, and that you're not walking alone. Because the fact is that anybody can go to Standing Rock, including criminals and homeless people, and try to take advantage of the situation. So it has happened, and it's very, very unfortunate. But that's why I put in the blog. If you go to momsacrossamerica.org, there's a blog, and there's some tips that we got, or sort of protocols, you want to say, that I remember from the orientation. It's not all inclusive. I'm sure there's much more, but yeah. So, my audio is funky. Can you hear me okay? I guess I should have put headsets in or something.
I can hear you fine.
You can hear me okay?
It's
All right.
better. It might have been my kids streaming.
Okay.
Stuff, so I took them off, but I had to rejoin. But yeah, thanks.
So, yeah, are there any other questions that anybody else has about Standing Rock?
I mean, is this this is like got to be an experience you'll never ever forget, and probably has changed you. I mean, I wish I could be there.
Yeah, they're such prayerful people. that you can't help but be inspired. You can't help but be humbled. I mean, I thought I was unstoppable, right? Like I thought that I was tenacious. And then I went to Standing Rock and saw these young people and elders standing in front of the police officers face to face, a few feet away, getting repeatedly sprayed with water in below freezing temperatures, and just standing there and saying water is life, and why are you spraying us, or why are you shooting us with rubber bullets? We're unarmed. And they were completely fearless, completely tenacious, and just awe-inspiring, just amazing. Now, there were some that were not awe-inspiring. They were swearing at the police officers. There was a young man that did throw a water bottle. There was some young men that were kicked out that apparently had gasoline, but I didn't see that. But a young man right next to me saw it. He said, I saw that they had gasoline. So there were provocateurs there, and I did not feel safe standing on the front line next to a man who was saying, F you, shoot me, right? And he was saying that because they just shot a woman in the head right next to him, right? So he was saying, shoot me, not these women in the head, these women. But I didn't feel safe standing next to somebody who was trying to provoke that. And that was not why I went there. I went there for the prayerful actions. But there were people who were completely prayerful, who were just chanting and, sort of dancing side to side and chanting and praying with a feather or with sage, and getting sprayed with water or getting shot with rubber bullets. And they continued to stay there. And it was really amazing. And they opened every ceremony with a prayer. They closed every ceremony with a prayer. They invited non-natives to pray if they wanted to. They didn't have to be native. But it is an Indigenous-led camp. And so if you want to go there and you have ideas about how things should go, we would invite you to set those aside and just follow the leadership of the elders. They have everything thought out. I promise you, they have everything thought out. And so it's very humbling just to, ask questions about what has already been established rather than just assuming that something hasn't been established is a really good thing. I did step up and take on leadership when I ran a women's meeting, because the Native American woman said that there would be no meeting the day of the big action, a women's meeting, because she personally would be tending to the women who were injured. So she was not going to run the normal meeting and the Rosebud camp. So I said, well, let's have a meeting, over at the Dome on the main camp. And so I took on the leadership to say, let's have a meeting. And I don't remember exactly how many, but maybe there were 15 women or something that gathered. And the interesting thing is that none of them were mothers. They were all young women in their 20s. And there's a lot of young people that are going there that feel very strongly about the government controlling, the corporations controlling the government, bullying the government into controlling the people. And so I was very inspired to see so many young women there, and they were really good about buddying up and having each other's backs and everything. So it was very humbling for me to lead a meeting to a group of women. But of course it was sanctioned. They said, if you have, 5 women, get together, have a women's meeting. So I did the best I could with that. And it was a really great experience. I did share that I was very grateful because even though I look Native American, I'm not. I'm Chinese and French and a little bit of Swamp Yankee, which is English, Irish, and Scottish. I grew up in Eastern Connecticut next to the Mohicans, the Pequots, and the Narragansetts. And my mom she's Chinese. She sort of grew up thinking she was Native American. She always wanted to be Native American. She's so cute. I wish I could show a picture of her, but she looks it. And she would bring us to the Narragansetts, to Princess Redwing, to hear her stories several times a year. And so we would sit on this Native American reservation. They have a museum there, which was voted the #1 oldest and best Native American museum in the country. And they have a beautiful Native American museum there. And we would listen to stories, and she would talk about how Father Sky is actually the shell of a turtle, and Mother Earth has given birth to everything, and stories about rabbits and eagles and wolves, and just really, they have a story for everything, and everything is sacred, and animals are sacred, and they all have a role in our lives. So I grew up in reverence of Native Americans and very connected to nature. For me, spirituality means being connected to nature. And so going to Standing Rock for me was, a little bit in honor of my mother and of the Native Americans that I got to be in the presence of as a child. And so it was very moving for me to be there and to be in the presence of so many Native Americans, and their spirituality was just awe-inspiring. It was really incredible. They have water ceremonies in the morning that were led. I wasn't able to go. I was really exhausted and tired and sick for part of the time, but Lisa did go, and she said it was incredible. You can't photograph any of it, so we don't have any pictures of that. But there was also a sacred fire, and every night they would have dancing around the sacred fire, just like you would imagine, the drums playing, and there would be an elder there, and you could offer things. And on the last day, we brought offerings of sage from my children's school garden and corn that we grew in our backyard from Baker Creek heirloom seed. And we made an offering, and then you go into the center circle and shake the hands of the elders. And one of the elders had a big, like a buffalo, headdress on, and he talked to my kids and blessed them. And it was amazing. And I'm just praying for them. I really don't want anybody to be hurt or to die there. I have to say, I'm very afraid for them. I really hope that the government steps in. With one phone call, Obama can stop this, right? With one phone call, Obama can stop this. And if you want to call Obama, that number is 202-456-1111. Again, 202-456-1111. So any other questions? We've been on for almost an hour now, and I really appreciate your time and attention.
I just have one more question about traveling there by myself.
So a lot of people have, and you can. It's apparently now, though, you would be trespassing. And when you get there, you would go to the orientation meeting in the morning and just try to connect with people. Now, there's no street signs, in the camp. It doesn't say California camp here and Colorado camp here, but there are camps, there are gatherings of people from different states. So if you ask around and you go to the Sacred Stone campfire, you could just start talking to people and connecting with people. But yeah, you would definitely want to sort of buddy up with somebody, especially at night. If you're going to go, for instance, they show the movie Dapple Lives at the Dome at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. There's 8 different kitchens around the camp. So you have to, walk across the camp to go to a kitchen, to a mess hall if you're going to be eating there. They highly recommend that you bring your own food, though, and that you're sustainable, because otherwise you're taking the resources of the people who are there long term. It's only if you absolutely, say your stove breaks or something and you absolutely can't cook for yourself. We only went, we went twice. We went to 2 dinners while we were there. Otherwise we had all of our food. One dinner, they actually asked everybody to go, the people who were at the front lines, to go and have dinner afterwards. There was a band that sponsored dinner for people. And then another night it was, everybody was just wiped out and cold and tired and sick. So we went, but my kid did get a rash after we ate the food there. So they're not serving all organic food, and if they do get organic food, it's not enough of it. So they mix it in with the other food. So you want to just bring your own food and eat organic anyway. And they want you to buddy up with people. So you can do that and just, be sustainable. If you go there, please don't plan on parking down a tent and digging a hole and starting a fire for yourselves. That totally takes up the resources of the people that are there long term. I saw a couple people doing that. There were 2 people sitting around a fire, and that was really just not smart. So they said, if there's wood burning, there should be 40 people around the fire, or there should be no wood burning. And there's places you can go to keep warm. There's domes, there's meeting halls, there's mess halls, kitchens and places like that, so you can keep warm while you're not sleeping. And then you go to your tent, or you go to the community sleeping areas. There are some community sleeping areas, but you want to try to be sustainable if you can, by all means. But I would suggest you try to find somebody to go with you rather than go alone.
There's the rideshare page on Facebook, and there's a lot of people looking to connect or drive together. So.
Thank you for bringing that up. Rideshare on Facebook, Standing Rock Rideshare.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also groups, in different states that have started. They've started. There's a caravan that's leaving December 23rd. They're trying to get lots and lots of people to go up there for, during that Christmas break time, where a lot of people have 2 weeks off. There are thousands of veterans, you're saying, Amber, now going now up there. So, and we're going to need it. We're going to need thousands of people, just like Gandhi did, right? We're going to need thousands of people there. Any other questions?
I had one more question. I just wanted to, what does your gut instinct tell you about how this is going to change things, about how this is going to change our fight? I just read this ridiculous article about Monsanto opening up a facility on native lands in Pima Valley in Arizona. Is this, I hope it can only bring us closer together in understanding, that soil is important instead of oil, and, to protect our water for our food supply. Nobody talks about that when they say, oh, well, the water is sacred. It's that this is in the middle of our country and our entire farming system's south of it,
Oh, that's
so
a good
I
point.
just want to get
water. Yeah, that water would be used for our food supply, right? Yeah.
It's like the fracking through California. This is the middle of our heartland, and these oil sands are north above them, and they're going to spill and travel southward. But I'm just curious if people are really kind of understanding the importance of that and the petrochemicals for this whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I think this is why everybody is coming together, because people are getting that corporations are really running the show now, and they're pissed off. They've had enough of it. People know now that Monsanto has executives in the White House, former executives in the White House. And I just wrote an article. It's on Huffington Post. It's called On the Ground at Standing Rock. And I address this issue that this movement is happening because there's years of buildup of resentment to corporations bullying our government, bribing our government, and having our senators and governors sell out to corporations, putting profit before the health and well-being of people. So this is why Moms Across America went, because this is just another example of corporations bullying our government or bribing our government, and doing exactly what I just said, putting profits before the well-being of people. And it has to stop. We have to draw the line somewhere. And this is a gathering of people, and I hate to use the word waking up, because we weren't really asleep before. We just weren't aware. This is a gathering of people who have awakened to the concept of the fact that people have rights, people have power, and if we all come together, we can do something about it. And we are. We are doing something about it. And there have been things that have changed and have stopped. And people like John Bolenball, who made the movie, who's making the movie Dapple Lies, and on helpa.org, they're exposing the lies and the harm that the corporations are perpetrating upon the people. And I have a lot of faith. I have so much faith in this. When you see the young people at Standing Rock say, this is an awakening or an uprising of Indigenous power, and we will not ever give our power away again. This is it. This is it. This is a huge, huge issue. And yes, and it's incorporated in with GMOs. 80% of GMOs are engineered to withstand glyphosate-based herbicides. And those formulants in herbicides have been shown to contain petroleum. herbicides and fertilizers contain petroleum-based chemicals. So they're digging up this 60-million-year-old death, as who is that, Cory Booker called it? It's death from the soil. It's been dead for 60 million years. They're digging that up, and then they're making it into plastic products. They're burning it as fuel, which pollutes our air, and they're making it into herbicides and pesticides and fertilizers and spraying it on our food. And you can see from the movie and helpa.org that the people that are downstream from the tar sands, from the oil spills, get huge tumors. The animals get huge tumors, just like the rats in Seralini's study, right? So, and he says it's not necessarily the petroleum that causes the tumors, it's the chemicals that are used to thin out the petroleum. So these chemical companies are poisoning the planet. They're poisoning people through directly spraying these chemicals on our food and polluting the waterways and the soil around us. And what was really disturbing was that he said that these oil companies and the energy transfer partners, these companies that make the pipelines, they have to do assessments, and they will know that there's a crack in a pipe for years, for 2 years, and they won't do anything about it. You know when they'll do something about it? After it breaks. You know why? Because the federal government gives them money to clean it up.
Well, Enbridge.
So they make money. They profit off of oil spills.
Enbridge, can you hear me? Yeah, Enbridge that was involved with the Kalamazoo spill. I found out, I did a little research, they have approximately 1.5 billion invested in this pipeline. So, and they also said that they're getting these easements to go through, like that guy's backyard in John Bullenbaugh's video, which I watched 3 times, and I've donated. I've had people donate after they saw it, and they said they're getting these easements. And since when is corporations involved in getting easements? This is illegal. So it's got to be stopped.
This is illegal, what's happening, folks. And I urge you to watch the movie on HELPA, HELPPA.org. We're having a holiday potluck party this Sunday at my house, and I'm going to be showing that video. And I'm also probably going to show the true cost, and it's about the true cost of fashion and clothing, and it's related because the GMO cotton is highly sprayed with these chemicals. And again, people are getting sick, they're getting tumors, right? And cotton is used, 90-something% of the cotton is GMO, and they're being highly sprayed with petroleum-based chemicals. And there's just a travesty that happens. So it's all connected. And yes, Amber, it's all connected. The chemical companies, the oil companies, they're all connected. And so it has to stop. And I'm very excited about this movement that's happening, because people really are taking action and rising up and donating. And I'm hopeful that things are going to change. And definitely something has to change about Native American rights. It's an absolute travesty what's happened. The hundreds of thousands of children were taken from their homes and, converted and robbed of their childhood with their families, and there was violence and rapes and all kinds of things. And these are the men that are now saying enough, right? These are older men that are leading some of the tribes, and they're saying enough. And also, by the way, December 5th in this area, there's been a history, Wounded Knee. My husband told me he read a book called Black Elk Speaks. And he said at Wounded Knee, there was a time when they gathered, they chased the Native Americans all around, and they got to this area in North Dakota and gathered up what was left of the Native Americans after they had been fighting each other for a very long time. And the Native Americans surrendered. They couldn't take it anymore. They didn't have any more teepees because they were packing up and moving, and they were sick and they were tired, and they surrendered. And what was left of them all got together in one group, the women and children, and then the men brought their weapons into a tent to relinquish them. And one of the weapons accidentally went off. And so the non-natives started shooting the natives, and they slaughtered the entire group of women and children. I think there were two there was one warrior guy who grabbed a ceremonial arrow and just charged at the group and was able to rescue 2 babies. And so they were able to get away. He was able to get away with 2 babies, but everybody else was killed. So this land has a lot of meaning for them and a lot of history of just horrible tragedies, massacres. And Amber says that they're still removing children from villages to attend school in Alaska. I don't know what it's going to take, but it has to change. We can't perpetrate these kinds of tragedies on injustices on people. We're better than this. We don't need to be doing this anymore. So whatever you can do, please go to OchetikShakoweenCamp.org if you want to donate. Please go there if you can. They need thousands of people willing to be there. I do want to address, if you go there and you are willing to be arrested, I personally was not arrested. I chose not to put myself right at the front. Well, actually, the event that I went at, they weren't arresting anybody. There was too much barbed wire in between them and the other people. They were just shooting people and tear gassing them and macing them. And I didn't see the sense in, going in the front lines to get my eye shot out, So I supported them. I handed out blankets and, was there hollering and hooting every time that they protected the fire from being put out. There was a wall of young people that they built a human wall with their backs, and they had a tarp over them to stand in between the way of the fire hose that they were shooting a very long stream of water, very powerful stream of water at the fires that they were had started to keep themselves from getting hypothermia. And they repeatedly sprayed that fire. There were 2 fires, actually, one that was further back and one that was closer. And they repeatedly sprayed that fire to try to put it out. And they're directly spraying the backs of the people, and they're trying to spray over their heads. And the young people just stood their ground, and the police were not able to put that out. But towards the end of the evening, it was probably around 1:00 in the morning, when I had been there for hours, they started to shoot the legs of those young people. And when I saw 2 of them fall, I just kind of lost it, and I just couldn't take watching that anymore. And I heard some people near me that were going back, and I decided to walk back with them. It was just too hard. I was too cold, and it was too draining. And I don't remember why I started talking about that, but it was really, really, really hard to see that. And I can't imagine that it's going to be much different when they go in to try to clear the camp, because they're not going to move. They're not going to go willingly. And
this is tonight? They're going to start?
The government, well, I don't know about tonight. What are you saying, Amber?
They're saying the 5th is the date. And so that's the date.
No, but the governor just issued an evacuation. The letter that I read today, that's effective immediately. So
they were giving them until the 5th, though. The 5th, they were giving them notice, and they have until the 5th. And so the 5th is the day for the call to all the veterans in the country to go stand. So 3,000 to 6,000 more people with military experience are going to the front lines.
But you said the military, that the vets were going to try and get there earlier than the 5th.
Yeah, they're on their way this week.
Yeah. So, but the governor's executive order is separate from the Army Corps of Engineers letter. And the Army Corps of Engineers letter says you have to be out by the 5th. But the governor's executive order says effective immediately.
But the governor doesn't have any jurisdiction.
He's doing it anyway. None of them really have jurisdiction over that land. It's Sioux Nation treaty land, but they don't care about that. I'm just saying that he issued it today. So anybody who's on the land now, if you're planning on going, you will be considered trespassing. You could get arrested. I know what I was talking about. Okay, so being arrested, I was talking about the frontline people who went to the front lines, right? You are risking arrest if you are part of any type of event. They don't want to call it direct action because they're not at war, but that's what they've been calling it, is direct action. So if you're a part of any type of, whether you call it direct action or event or anything like that, or prayer ceremony, you are risking arrest. And if you are arrested, from the people that I spoke to, it's better to stay in for 3 days, because you get arraignment on your way out if you choose to stay in and not get bailed out. If you get bailed out, that just means you have to come back again for your arraignment, which means 4 to 5 months. They're backed up right now. And then you have to come back again for the court date. So you would have to go back to North Dakota twice for your arraignment and your court date if you choose to get bailed out. And if you get bailed out, they don't have money just for that. You have to have a loved one bail you out, right? They do have money for cars being impounded. So if you go on a direct action in a car, apparently legal has had money for that. But that could be limited, because once they put the money in for the impoundment to get the car out, then that's gone, right? You're using up those resources. Same thing with bail. You put the money in, you're probably not going to get it back right away when you go back to court, right? It ties that money up. So you have to have resources for that. But if you stay in, you get your arraignment, you stay in for 3 days, expect a strip search in front of officers, male and female down to 1 layer, right? Like your underwear. So you would be in front of male or female officers, and the strip shirt, completely naked, where you have to squat and cough in a shower, is in front of a female. And if you're female, and then you're allowed 1 layer of clothing back on, and you go into your cell, and they reportedly have not given people blankets all night. They've woken them up at 3 o'clock in the morning to feed them, which of course is the worst time to wake up, right? They make them wait. And some of them were saying that the police officers would like put the brakes on in the car, so that the people in the car would hit their heads on the seats in front of them, and they were like taunting them, and really putting them, you've probably all heard they put some people in dog kennels and stuff like that. So it can be pretty brutal. But the people that I met said, was no big deal. That it's a big deal, but it's really no big deal. Like they lived, they're fine. You know what I mean? They weren't like beaten in prison or anything like that. So they know that what they were doing was of service. So I really acknowledge everybody that's willing to get arrested, because it can, if they charge you with a felony, that can affect your ability to go on international travel. And that was one of the reasons why I was hoping not to get arrested, or didn't want to put myself in a position to get arrested, because that would be a problem for me, for Moms Across America. And so but anybody now that's on the camp is at risk of getting arrested, of course. And also they're saying fined. So they may be, putting out hefty fines to people. So, anything else?
No.
Thank you for going.
Yeah. Thank you to all the supporters for donating. Again, it was really extraordinarily generous of you. They have so many supplies now because of you. I really appreciate it. And we appreciate the opportunity to have to go, to be there. There's still, more pictures in another video that I hope to get out. I may just put it out as audio because the imagery was not great. But, just get involved as much as you can. Call the president, call the governor, donate, go there. A lot of people are having demonstrations at the Army Corps of Engineers in their cities. So please get involved. You can do that. You can also, there's a letter going around. I haven't seen it yet. Let's remind ourselves to post it if we can. There's a letter going around from one of the senators to the governor of North Dakota, and we're trying to get our senators to sign on to it. So you can call your senator and say, please sign this letter. I forgot which senator it's by, but we'll find it and put it up there. It's a letter headed up, sponsored by one of the senators, to the North Dakota governor, saying, please stop this. Stop the police brutality, stop the pipeline. We have to respect the treaty, and we have to respect the people. That this is a disaster waiting to happen. There's 300 pipeline breaks a year. It pollutes the soil in the water for 20 years or more. This is down, it's 20 million people, somewhere between 18 and 20 million people downstream from this point of the river. And, the fact is that this is on treaty land, and it comes near or at through 7 points of water. Where it would have been in a white neighborhood above Bismarck going through 1 point of water, which was the Missouri River. Instead, they moved it south into the treaty land near or at 7 points of water and through an ancestral burial ground. So it's
also make sure to defund your bank accounts and
yes,
defund
your bank accounts. There's a great meme that's going around that shows, I think it's 13 different banks. So you can look, I think a guy started either a Facebook page or website called Defund DAPL. And he wants you to go to your bank, like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, there's a bunch of banks, and go there and say, and he wants you to give him a letter saying, close your account. But you can also just say it. I'm closing my account because you fund DAPL and you fund police brutality, you fund the poisoning of the planet and the, the water and the soil, and you're funding, basically breaking treaties and disrespecting people. And yes, defund DAPL. Thank you, Sally. And close your account, and then take a picture of yourself outside of your bank with a sign saying, I just, defund DAPL, hashtag defund DAPL, or I just, defunded DAPL. So if hundreds of thousands of people do this, then, Sally, yeah. If hundreds of thousands of people do this, then it will make a difference. It absolutely will make a difference. So please go to your bank and pull your money out. I was going to wait till December 31st because it's cleaner for books for a nonprofit, but I'm reconsidering that because this is really very serious. And put your money in a credit union that does not fund, corporations like this. Oh, one other point to make is that this oil has been shown in reports that this oil is not going, the majority of this oil is not going to reduce our dependency on foreign oil. It is going overseas to be exported, most likely to China. And what will be done there? It'll be made in China into cheap plastic toys and into herbicides and pesticides. China makes the largest amount of glyphosate-based herbicides on the planet. So a lot of that oil could be made right back into, Roundup and sprayed on our food. So this is not necessary. The fact is that we could power the entire United States on a very small area like the corner of Arizona. If they'd covered the corner of Arizona with solar panels, we would be able to, power the entire United States with solar energy. And wind energy is out there. Wind and solar do not spill. They do not poison the planet. And we have other alternatives other than these pipelines. So it's it has to change. And this is also imperative for climate change. And I believe that's why a lot of people are involved in this as well, because they're connected with the climate movement. And it's just a very, very important issue. I really hope this is a turning point in history for all of us. And Amber says to don't defund your retirement accounts. Oh, your IRA, yes. And the only one that's tricky for me is the school, the school accounts, the mutual funds, because you can only pull that money out for education. You get dinged with taxes and stuff if you pull it out for any other purpose. So
sometimes you can change your allocation though, and you can ask them, call these companies and ask them how to get your money out of. I mean, you don't have to necessarily pull it out of that account,
right?
But you can reinvest it in different funds that aren't making money off of this.
Right.
Yeah.
I sent a letter to our 509 or whatever, whichever is the education fund, saying I didn't want them to invest in Monsanto. I did that a long time ago, so we could do the same thing with DAPL as well. Okay. All right. So I have to sign off too. Thank you everybody for being on tonight, and thank you for your support. Many blessings to you. Stay safe and warm, and please pray and do whatever action you can for Standing Rock. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.